Waiting isn't wrong, but waiting without a plan usually costs you leverage. And we all know prepared sellers win. Welcome to Real Estate Explained. I'm Nick Bush, a Fredericksburg area realtor, and this podcast is focused on helping you make smarter real estate decisions right here in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Each week, we break down what's actually happening in the local market, talk through what it's like to live in Fredericksburg, and answer the real questions buyers, sellers, and investors are asking without hype, headlines, or guesswork. If you're buying, selling, investing, or just trying to understand the market better, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. One of the biggest misconceptions I'm hearing right now is that selling a home in Fredericksburg is still automatic. And it's not only in Fredericksburg where people believe this, it's all over Northern Virginia and DC where people feel like you don't have to market your property. You could just put it on the market and buyers will come. So basically they believe like if you put a sign in the yard, you price it aggressively and wait long enough, everything will just work out. I want to be very clear. Homes don't just sell because they're listed anymore. They sell when they're positioned correctly. A lot of the advice sellers are relying on right now and depending on as true is left over from 2021 and 2022. And using that advice today can cost you real money. In this episode, we're going to be talking about what Fredericksburg sellers actually need to understand right now. What has changed? What's hurting sellers the most? And what you should be doing if you want leverage instead of regret. By the end, you should have clarity on whether selling now, later, or not at all makes sense. It's not always a good time to sell. Maybe you want to chill and relax in your home. And also how to approach those decisions the right way. Let's start by closing the book on the old market. In 2021, homes in Fredericksburg were selling in an average of about 13 days, and many sold for roughly 2% over list price. In 2022, the market was still strong. Homes sold in about 16 days on average, and prices were still coming in a little over 1% above list price. That was a very specific moment in time, and this is the last episode where I'm going to talk about that market because we need to move on. Holding on to those expectations today is one of the fastest ways to hurt yourself as a seller. The most common mistake I'm seeing right now is that sellers are not preparing their homes for the market. They're not staging, they're opposed to updating, no paint, no refreshed kitchens or bathrooms, no small improvement. They're not really doing any of those things anymore. There's this mentality that someone will buy it and make their own updates. But that's not how buyers today think. Buyers want a product that they can emotionally say yes to. When preparation is skipped, especially when pricing is aggressive, homes sit. I've seen homes that should sell quickly sit for months because they were priced even $25,000 too high, pushing them into the wrong pricing bracket. There's this contemporary home on 5 acres in the Rivers Bluff neighborhood that's been sitting for almost 6 months, not because it's a bad house, but because it's at least $100,000 overpriced. And I've seen this house a few times, and I love it. Here's what usually happens next. Around the 2 to 4 week mark, sellers start reducing price. The first reduction is often $10,000 to $25,000, depending on how overpriced they were. Showings usually pick up at that time, but buyers are now asking a different question about the home. They're saying, what's wrong with this house? At that point, leverage is already slipping. And here's the hard truth. Sellers who start too high almost always end up netting less, even if they eventually sell close to where they should have started. They didn't let the market push them up. They chased the market down. This is where pricing strategy matters. Pricing is not one thing. At the Kobe Company, we use 3 different pricing strategies, and choosing the wrong one is where sellers get hurt. The first pricing strategy is called aspirational pricing. That's pricing high to test the market, hoping the right buyer pays a premium. This strategy carries the highest risk today and often leads to sitting and chasing price reductions. The second is perceived market value pricing. This is where most successful listings live right now. You're pricing at what buyers expect the home to be worth based on recent sales, condition, and competition. This attracts serious buyers and keeps leverage intact. The third is what I call event pricing. This is pricing slightly under market value, but you're doing that on purpose to create urgency, traffic, and competition. When done correctly, this can generate multiple offers and strong terms, even in a more balanced market. My favorite pricing strategy of those 3 is the event pricing. When sellers hear this, sometimes they think that you're pricing way under market value. Really what you're doing is you're pricing a smidge under market value so buyers in the marketplace feel like they might be getting a deal. But what ends up happening is you end up getting multiple offer scenarios, and then you get to drive your price point back up to at least where you should be in the perceived market value and oftentimes over with better contingencies for you as a seller. So with that being said, pricing isn't about what you want to get, what you actually want to sell the house for. It's about how you want buyers to behave. So if you're thinking about selling, the most helpful thing you can do is stop thinking like a homeowner and start thinking like a buyer. Buyers today are more intentional, more selective. They're not just buying a house, they're buying a lifestyle. They're asking important questions. Does this home feel move-in ready at this price point? How does it compare to other homes I've seen? And am I compromising too much here? That's why two very similar homes can have different outcomes. Fredericksburg isn't one market, it's several micro markets. Location, convenience, school zones, and commute patterns matter just as much as square footage. Buyers will pay for homes that feel prepared, well presented, and appropriately priced. But they move on quickly from homes that feel dated, cluttered, poorly marketed, or hard to see. And this is a big one. It is shockingly difficult to show some homes right now. Showing instructions aren't clear, showings aren't approved quickly, windows are tight because most sellers are owner occupied. And just to explain what I mean here is in a little bit more detail is that sometimes I'm out with buyers and I'm showing homes and they say, hey, we like this property at 123 Main Street. Can we just go check it out to compare what we've already seen? And they want to see it spontaneously, right? But because showings aren't quickly approved, buyers can't get in the house, right? That might have been the buyer who was going to actually purchase your home, but you made it too hard for them to get access. Access is so important, when you're selling your home, because if buyers can't see the house, they're not going to buy it. So, I get it. Life's busy, but every extra barrier you put between a buyer and your home costs you leverage. If a buyer can't get in easily, they move on. If your home can't be added to a showing schedule spontaneously, you lose momentum. With owner-occupied sellers, one thing I do differently is create clean showing windows so buyers can walk in without friction instead of waiting on approval. Convenience is leverage in this market. So let's talk about the question I hear all the time. What are sellers actually thinking right now? We're talking about people who want to sell their homes, but they're not sure if it's the right time. What they're really asking is, should I wait for rates to drop so I can sell my house for more money? Here's what most sellers aren't thinking through though. Let's say rates drop. Yes, demand may increase. Yes, competition may heat up. But what happens after you sell? Are you cashing out and sitting on the sidelines, or are you buying your next home, possibly your forever home, in a more competitive buyer's market? When rates drop, more buyers come back. More sellers list. Competition increases on both sides. In my opinion, if you know you want to sell in the next 3 years, it probably makes more sense to sell sooner and buy sooner. And this is the reason why. Even today in Fredericksburg, homes are still selling about 99% to list price. So you're still making money. And when the market becomes more competitive again, you're already in the asset that's appreciating instead of chasing it. Waiting isn't wrong, but waiting without a plan usually costs you leverage. And we all know prepared sellers win. So this is what I think sellers should do. If you're a seller in Fredericksburg right now, there are 3 non-negotiables. First, price correctly, either at true market value or slightly under to create traffic. Second, make your home easy to show. Access matters more than sellers realize. Third, prep your house. If you can't do everything, I always feel like paint is the highest impact improvement you can make. It completely changes the feel of the home. And let me tell you about paint and why it's important. I had a listing in Springfield post-COVID, so 2019, 2020. The seller was painting the house and she had red paint in the basement. And she was like, hey, should we paint the basement? The painters are here, they can just get it done. At that time in the market, it was kind of balanced. I didn't know paint mattered that much. And the feedback we got from that house at every open house, at every showing is, why is the basement paint all red, right? And so I had to learn the hard way with my client that painting does change buyer behavior. So I love paint. The one thing sellers obsess over and shouldn't is timing. Waiting for spring, waiting for the perfect week. The reality is if your home is cream of the crop, it will sell. If you're a seller in Fredericksburg, don't wait until you need to sell. Needing to sell removes leverage. It removes preparation time. It forces rushed decisions. If you're even considering selling, right now is the right time to have that conversation. We can walk through your goals. I can break down our systems at the Kobe Company. We can talk about what preparation actually makes sense and whether selling now, later, or even off market is the right move. If you're not ready to go public, we can list your home off market to our network of vetted buyers, agents, and lenders, which can sometimes lead to better terms and premium outcomes. If you found all of this helpful, make sure you subscribe for our weekly Fredericksburg real estate insights. And if you're buying, selling, or just trying to figure out what makes sense for you in the Fredericksburg market, you can reach out directly. You can email me at nick@thekobecompany.com or find my Instagram and DM me at Nick Bush the Realtor. You'll also find resources, guides, and my mortgage calculator at thekobecompany.com. Thanks for tuning in to Real Estate Explained, and I'll see you on the next episode.